A Poway witch hunt. Is there a Poway witch hunt going on in Poway? Now, some of the supporters of Tony Blain have actually, let me reel this back. There is in Poway a dynamic that exists where Mayor Vaus, who's been mayor now since 2014, he has a very large block of support in town, whether it's from existing or former council members, or it's really people throughout the city. I've often referred to it as the Poway Old Guard that kind of wants to continue a lot of the traditions of Poway, or maybe they have the same political philosophy as Vaus or some of the other previous Poway politicians, which generally have been Republican. And there is a loyal and vocal opposition to that, which is a minority. And up until very recently, this vocal minority has never, ever been able to win an election, at least not in the last few decades. You know, this is Chris Cruz and Frida Brunzel and, you know, a lot of these folks that are just very vocal. And then, by the way, I interviewed Frida Brunzel here on my John Riley Project podcast, and she's a very nice lady. I mean, and we had some agreement and some disagreement on issues because, you know, she was running for school board at the time, but I enjoyed hearing her out, you know, so I did enjoy hearing her out. But this is a vocal minority that has generally not been very successful. So now there's that vocal minority is framing this recall effort against Tony Blain as a witch hunt. And I thought, is it a witch hunt? And so I looked up the definition of a witch hunt, and it says, in a political context, a witch hunt refers to an intense and often unfair public campaign or investigation, typically aimed at expose perceived wrongdoings or disloyalty, but often used to harm opponents. It can involve elements of moral panic, mass hysteria, and the scapegoating of individuals or groups. Well, the Tony Blain recall effort fits that definition to a great degree. There are certain elements of that definition that don't fit. But calling it a witch hunt is not that far off base. I mean, it's in the right neighborhood. But it's the funny dynamic is that it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is what we're seeing here. You know, the people that are calling this out as a witch hunt, a lot of them rightfully condemn Tony Blain for his ethical violations, but they still oppose the recall election because they hate Mayor Vaus so much and hate Mayor Vaus's block of support on city council and throughout the community, that when they see an opponent to Vaus, in this case, Tony Blain, who's on city council, who's rattling cages, who's challenging Mayor Vaus, and who has already announced his candidacy for mayor in 2026, you know, in some cases, we see the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think that adds more, it's like a soap opera here in Poway, what's going on. It's nuts. It really is crazy. Now, and by the way, to kind of go back to this witch hunt thing, apparently, and again, you guys can fact check me on this. I believe this to be true, that there was a proposal that was being considered on the Poway City Council that would give city council members, or perhaps the city council total in a vote, the ability to fine other city council individuals, city council member individuals, you know, essentially to start this sort of a fine war across the die. Or is it the dais? I always kind of get those confused, but at any rate, the pronunciation. But thankfully that was shot down, because in my opinion, that's a step too far. We can't have politicians fining other politicians, especially when you have deep partisanship. I mean, if there is a legal case against Tony Blain, then it needs to be pursued legally by the district attorney, which seems like the wheels are in motion. And at the same time, if there's a problem with Tony Blain that needs to be kicked out of office, then recall him. And there is a recall effort. But the fining just seems like that would just be petty and silly and finger pointing. So it's something.